Where do ideas come from? It's a question I get asked a lot, and one that is hard to put into structure. Today, I'm going to sit down with composer Oleksandra Shvchenko, and she is going to give me a piece of music that is going to inspire my next film. I'm going to use this piece of music that she gave to me, which you've already been listening to. I have not heard it at this point. You're going to be able to follow along, and hopefully this will inspire you to go write your story. Let's get started.
Yeah, when I came here to the Netherlands to study, I started already talking to people in my first year of studies and trying to get myself jobs in film to already score my first film. And actually I did in the end of the first year of my studies. I scored 2 short films for students for free just to practice. And I actually got a full feature film in my first year of school. It was very lucky. Yeah, it was really crazy because I saw this ad on Twitter. Back then it was still Twitter. Yeah, and they were looking for a composer for a sci-fi horror movie. And it was really funny because when I went to study film composition, I went with this really clear idea that I'm gonna be writing orchestral scores. I'm gonna be like John Williams. I'm gonna do this type of film music. And then I see this sci-fi horror. I'm like, horror? I don't even watch horrors. I don't really like horrors. And I was like, but okay, maybe I can try. And then I asked, what kind of music do you want me to write? And they say, yeah, something more like synths, textures, soundscapes. And I've never done anything like this before. I'm like, okay, I will try. And I spent like a few days researching different libraries because, of course, we work a lot of MIDI libraries because they're not always live musicians, but also for this kind of things, you need to have libraries or sounds or, packs of samples. And I researched a lot of different libraries, found lots of different sounds, and I scored 2 test scenes for the film. And the director really liked it, so we actually used the same music that was like for my practice for the scenes. We kept exactly the same way in the movie, in the final score. And I scored the whole film, and I really loved working with textures and colors and scenes, and I was like, wow, this is a new world for me. And it's funny because from that time, most of my scores that I did for other people, for film directors, most of them are like this, not orchestral at all.
Interesting.
Very much about textures. Yeah, it's just crazy because I didn't plan to do it. It just happened, and I really enjoyed it. So it's kind of my thing now.
I've told a lot of filmmakers that when they start out, and I'm like, because I think we all wanted to be something when we started out. Like we had this inspiration, and then you get into the middle of your first. I remember in the middle of my first feature, and it's like we didn't know there was gonna be snow, and there's like 3 feet of snow, and we're rewriting, and so like the whole tone's changing. You're like, well, I'm not gonna be that filmmaker anymore. It's like, what am I gonna be now? And so I think it's really interesting for an artist of any capacity to hear what you're saying and being open to this weird door that kind of opened. It was like, hey, do you want to play in this sandbox for a little bit? And so you started playing with that. What were some of the things that were inspiring you to want to do film music? Were there like films you were watching as a young kid, or was there something that like kind of was like, oh, that's something I would like to do? Because you said you started with like classical piano, so that's a little bit removed from film scoring. But yeah, so if you could just talk about how those kind of things converged, like was there a film you watched or something you saw that gave you like that spark?
It's a very long process for me. It was a very long journey that finally got me here. So of course I've always loved music. I've always loved movies and film music, but I never thought about it as a separate thing, like film music. I mean, it's just music in film. So like, okay, I didn't really think about it that much. And I studied classical piano. Since I was 5 years old, I knew that I want to do something in music in my life. Like whatever my profession will be, it will be something that's about music. So I studied classical piano, but I didn't go through with being a concert pianist because it's a lot of work, lots of competition. It's a really harsh field. Like really people are not very nice to each other. Being a concert pianist, you really need to, claw your way. And then I was a piano teacher in a music school for a bit, and it was nice. It was fine to be a teacher. I cannot say it's like really my thing or really not my thing, but it's something that I can do and I can enjoy it. Then I started a band. I was playing in a band, in like a cover band, and I started my own band and I started writing songs. And I actually released an EP album with my own songs where I was like singer-songwriter. And I was like, okay, maybe that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna have a band and I'm gonna sing and I'm gonna perform. And I released an album and I was like, yeah, this. And then I went to a PR agency and they talked me through the realities of like show business. And I was like, yeah, no, I don't want to do this. Like, really, no, I want to create. I don't want all of these other things to, to perform, to kind of not really be yourself, because lots of this, a lot in show business, it's about what they tell you to do and not what you really want to do. And I really felt like I don't want that, and I really want to do what I want to do. So, and then my sound producer, who was helping me produce the album, he told me that my songs have this cinematic feel. And I was like, okay, cinematic feel. So film music. And I was thinking about it more. And I was like, yeah, maybe I should try that. And then I applied to this like a course in Germany for a year that prepares for this university that I later studied. And once I went there, once I started writing for film, learning more about the industry and how it works and music for film, and listening more to soundtracks, and every time I would watch a movie, I would pay really lots of attention to how it's done. And I really love it, and I think that I have arrived, in my musical journey. This is what I want to do. I want to write music, not perform, not to teach, but not to play, but write. And it also doesn't have to be film, but film mostly. But yeah, it was a really long journey, because at some point I was really not sure what I need to do, but I was like, it has to be something with music, but what? Like, I tried everything, and it led me to film, and I think that this is the right place for me.
I love that. I can see the joy in your face talking about it. If we were like to focus in on that, the creating and not the other things, what do you think has changed over these, last couple of years of, I guess we could say the last five, because that's been, probably the biggest shift culturally, for the entertainment industry. And like, I think a lot of people now know how demanding it is, and people aren't getting paid. And a lot of these things that are happening, we're kind of opening that up to the consumer. But what is something that's changed over the course of your career that actually kind of makes you excited about what's happening? Because we do know there's some bad things, but I'd like to try to figure out like what's something that's happening that you're actually like, oh, this might actually be something that's really good eventually.
Oh, that's an interesting question, because I'm not sure. For me, I don't really see a lot of changes, negative or positive.
Oh, okay.
It's been because I only worked with like small productions, indie productions, so I'm not in the world of big productions, big teams, and all of this panic. And I work with people that I actually meet directly and work really closely with people. Usually, I'm the only one who's doing music. I'm doing my own mixing, my own mastering. It's rarely a team of people, and for me, I don't really see a lot of changes. I don't know. Um, I cannot really say anything about that. For me, it hasn't really changed much. It's just I connect to people, I find people, we talk. Uh, always the issue with indie productions is the funding, but it's either goes through or it doesn't. And it's like if either they get the funding or they don't get the funding. So if you don't get the job, or you get the job.
So what is the film community like in the Netherlands? I'm it's kind of a blind spot for me. Is there like a big, kind of window of people that are doing this, or what's your
I
experience
don't
with
think
that?
so. I don't
Okay.
think it's a big community. I don't think there's a lot of people doing it. What I can tell from my experience, I cannot really say like it's 100% how it is, but from my experience, that there is funding for projects in the Netherlands, for interesting projects in film and animation, in arts in general. I know that this country, they're trying to support art industries and artists. There are lots of different programs, lots of different funds here. It's not that easy to get them, but it is still possible. And I am right now also waiting for also a funding decision for another production that's also going to be Dutch. And I hope it will be successful because it's a big thing here about funding. If you have a project and you have an idea, you can always come to the government and apply for funding, for grants, and that's how you get to develop your ideas and your dreams. So there's a lot of help from that. That's how I see it, and that's how I experience it. So that's a good thing.
As a yes, as a American citizen, that is not something we fund really over here, which is unfortunate. And so it sounds like, is it kind of similar to like the UK lottery a little bit for their art making? I don't know how much you know about that. Yeah, so they have like a similar thing where you can like submit, and I think it's called the lottery, the UK lottery, but it's all for like art making. And I learned about that when I had a film premiere at Rain Dance 7 or 8 years ago, and was just like, oh, your government, if you have a cool idea, they'll help you out. That sounds wild. um, and I'm just like, yeah, in my head, I'm just like, oh my god, this sounds wonderful to have like a cool idea, and then your government's like, yeah, I'll give you a little bit of money to go make your art. That's
I think
America's not
how
that
I
country.
also, yeah, I guess. I think also it's important thing that it has to be. I think you have more chances of getting the grant, the funds, if your project is somehow about the Netherlands. Like this, for example, this animation that I wrote music for. This was fully funded because it was an animation about the history of this little town in the Netherlands. It was for a museum of history. So it was an important thing that I think it's also because it will probably attract more tourists because it's a museum and tourists go there to this town. And it's also about being proud of the heritage of the history and making it more known to people, more available, and in a fun way of an animation, and it's easier to watch. So that way you can also learn about the history and the culture of the country. So I guess also the projects that are related more to that, to history or to culture, those projects are more likely to be selected and to get the funding. That's also how I perceive it, how I see it. I don't know.
Okay, yeah. No, it's just maybe one day our country will do that, but it's always like the like the European countries that have been funding art like that way for a while has always been really intriguing to me of how we could do that kind of. I guess we have like PBS, which is the public broadcasting system. You can technically pitch to that, but that's TV, and it's there's a lot more regulations because you're over the air. And but so I'm just always interested of how other countries perceive art. You were talking about like collaboration and stuff, and that's how we met. I put out a pretty random question to you, and because I'm putting together kind of like a series of things for new filmmakers where I'm now that I have a word for it, taking autonomous things and trying to turn them into something else. But yeah, so I wanted to first off um, kind of ask you what it was that even got you to respond to that, because we're in this kind of time right now where everybody's starting to realize how creativity works and how people make things and the money. Everybody knows about that now. So there's either like this camp of like everything needs to be paid at the highest volume or everybody needs to be taken advantage of. And so we're getting into like these kind of like weird creative spaces where we're actually talking about, like, no, sometimes collaborating is the way to kind of do it. So if you could kind of talk a little bit about, Yeah, because to be fair, whenever I put it out, I was like, I don't think anybody's ever going to respond to this because I'm like asking for a free piece of music to do this experiment with. And so, yeah, if you could kind of talk about what interested you about like doing like kind of a weird collaboration like this.
I mean, it's a really interesting idea to do it like that, to write the film like for the music. It's to do it completely the other way around. And like, a few years ago, I had a film director who responded to me because I was like trying to connect with people, and I just was sending like emails, messages, and there was this film director who also said like, I listened to your string quartet, and I have ideas for a film, so I might create a film just because I listened to your music. But that never happened.
Okay.
I don't know why.
Okay.
Maybe she got too busy with other things. But that for me was the first time I've heard about this kind of a concept, to create a film after the music. So you kind of take the music as an inspiration. I was like, wow, that's really interesting. I've never thought about it. And then you also contacted me, of course, it's like years later, with the same idea, and I'm like, yeah, I gotta do this because it didn't work like the first time. It didn't go anywhere, but now it was kind of like another chance to do it, because it's also interesting how your process would be with this, because I'm usually the one who creates music for something, so I usually work
Yeah.
with something that's already there, and I need to be inspired by it, so my music is not, it doesn't come first. And in this case, it's going to be the other way around. And I'm really curious how that would be, because it's a film. So how different is the process of creating a film after the music than the music after the film? So
To answer your question, I've also never done this. So, but yeah, like I've been trying to do these experiments where I'm filming them too for like the audience, like for these new creatives to be like, I'm also I might fail at that. I don't know what's about to happen, and because you're talking about like this autonomous creating, and there's no other reason for you to do that than to practice and create, and there's no judgment. It's just like whatever comes from this is like I have to keep moving. I have to keep trying new things. And I think it's really great for new creatives to be able to see that in real time from, those of us that have been doing it longer, because there is like this gatekeeping that happens in these kind of creative fields where it feels like impossible to figure out anything. But what I've realized is, yeah, you can. I've talked to composers when I'm the feature I'm developing right now and going to do this summer. I've been talking to composers for that for 10 years and being like, hey, here's an idea I have, and I was like, how when I come to it, and then whenever I reached out to you, I was like, well, what if they just already have some music, and like I use that limitation to try to figure out, is there a better story in here based on something that's already happening? And but yeah, no, so I was really kind of grateful because, yeah, like you were saying earlier, like your music is very cinematic. This interesting thing you have going on with nature is like, it's definitely coming through in the music, especially if you just like close your eyes and just so I think that there is going to be something really unique that comes out of it. And like I told you, I'm gonna listen to it. But today, after our conversation, I wanted to talk to you first, and then just in real time listen to it and come up with ideas and see where it kind of takes me, and then write a 1 to 3 page script and see what kind of happens. But um, so what is it that now I'm gonna see if I can, because I haven't listened to it all the way through yet either. So if there's anything in the piece that like in your mind it represents.
I wouldn't say it represents anything. That piece I wrote, that I just wanted to experiment with different approaches, different techniques. Kind of, I really wanted to not have any ideas for the piece and just try things. I was really writing it like bar by bar. I didn't really think about the structure, the form, how many parts it will have, how long it will be. It's just like, okay, I'll start with this. Okay, it works. Okay, I think it's time to do something new. Okay, oh, this is different. Oh, this is interesting. And I was just really going like bar by bar and just going places and try not to be too focused on details and on specifics, because again, like I come from a classical background. classical background is everything very, organized, structured, very kind of like square in a way. And in my first year of writing music, when I was studying, I was trying to get rid of this mindset, very classical mindset, classical approach to writing music. So it's just okay to go places with like musically when you just feel like, okay, I want to go here and then there and then there. And it doesn't have to have logic. It doesn't have to have a structure. You don't need to think it through the whole thing before you sit down and write. So for me, that was like a really experimental piece that I just wanted to see where it leads me in a way and just follow it. So I think it's also one of the reasons why I chose it.
That feels like very much what I'm gonna have to do with it. I'm just gonna have to yeah, which is like now I'm like, oh man, I like because I'm trying to not go in with any ideas, like you're saying, like, but in my head it's just like, oh, I know, like I have some shots that I'd like to put into something, and so I've been trying to be like, no, just don't have any ideas, just see what comes. And so that's very cool. So was this something that you wrote after you started playing with like the soundscapes in that horror film? Like, or is this before that?
Yes, it was after. Yes, I wrote
Okay,
it.
so after you kind of learned about, you liked that kind of way of working. Because I think it's great you're saying, like, I mean, if we go to college for this or university or whatever you're doing, you get like this very, yeah, polished way of creating. It's just like, this is the way we do it. And then you get out and then you realize none of those constructs work in the real world. And you're like, we just got to go make stuff. Oh my God, now I'm so excited because I'm like, I don't know what's gonna happen with it.
Yeah, that's why it's so interesting because like I experimented with the piece and I let it take me places, and now you will kind of do the same
Yeah.
with the experimental piece. So it's gonna be very cool. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the result.
Thank you so much for spending a little bit of your day with me. If you want to see the finished film and the creative process behind coming up with the ideas for the film, then make sure to like and subscribe and turn your notifications on. Those videos will be coming out very shortly. So I hope you have a beautiful day. And if you're a creative that would like to collaborate in this unique way, then head on over to bronsonCreative.us and hit me up. See you next time.